Hello and welcome back. I'm Loudguns, and today we're going to take a look at ERTs, and specifically a few different options for taking on the Hammerheads, as they're probably the most challenging NPC-controlled ship in those group missions. So I'm standing next to my Aegis Sabre, which is my primary bounty hunter, but we'll also take a look at the Anvil Arrow for a light fighter option, and the Aegis Eclipse for a very easy stealth bomber option if you're struggling with these hammerheads at all. So before we get into it, just to say a big thank you to everyone who's watching these videos, liking, subscribing. If this content is interesting for you, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I just wanted to get this video out today. We've been sort of working on this for the last few days. But then it's going to be on to the 3.13 patch. Going to be taking a look at the PTU later today. So hopefully we'll have more videos coming out in the near future regarding what's new in that patch. And finally, we've just got a link to our Discord down in the video description below. Just if you want to come and get involved with the group for any sort of the activities and missions and stuff, which will take a few more people, or if you're looking to find extra people to play with, then please feel free to pop in and say hello. You'll also find my referral code link down there, just in case you're a new player and you're thinking about picking up a game package. You'll get some extra credits and it helps me out too. So without further ado, let's start with the Sabre. So the Aegis Sabre is billed as a medium stealth fighter. To be honest, I don't particularly use it in any particularly stealthy capacity. I personally like it for its 3 shields and its 4 size 3 hard points. So it gives you that option, sort of like you have on a cutlass, to have the guns all be the same size, which just helps in terms of easily finding your range for your weapons. So as opposed to something like a Vanguard, for instance, where you're matching that size 5 main weapon with 4 size 2s, which means that you'll be firing your main gun for a long time before your other weapons actually come into range. Another competitor to consider in this space is the Anvil Hornet. It does benefit from effectively getting a size 4 gun on top. You can change the turret to a size 4, at which point you can fit one of the Salvation size 4 distortion scatterguns, which do a lot of damage to shields, useful for hammerheads. And you can press G to fix any gimbals, so effectively then it becomes all fixed weaponry if you go for 3 size 3s along with that 1 size 4. I just personally, I found that the 2 shields made it notably flimsier. The reason I would sort of put using a Sabre as like almost your medium difficulty option for doing ERTs is those 3 shields, particularly if you fit them with the FR66s. They basically give you a lot of leeway to screw up a bit. So you still have to dogfight your targets, but because of the level of shielding, it's very forgiving. So we'll take a quick look at the loadout. So we're not going to worry too much about missiles. I personally prefer to be able to chain bounties together, so I rely on energy weapons. I don't want to have to restock missiles, and I don't want to have to reload ammunition for ballistics. So I've mixed 2 DR model XJ3 distortion repeaters with 2 CF Panthers. The reason I go for the distortions is because you need something against these hammerheads to get down their shields. And the reason for the Panthers as opposed to the attritions is just particularly for the Sabre, which isn't quite as maneuverable as, say, a lighter fighter. Getting into that sort of 300 meter sweet spot range for the attrition 3s isn't as feasible. So the CF337 Panthers don't have that range drop off that the attritions do, so you can sort of engage from a bit further out without losing the DPS. For the shields, I've got 3 FR66s. The instant regen rate makes it very forgiving. That does mean if you want to overclock everything that you need to upgrade one of the stock power plants on the Sabre, so I've taken that to a JS300. But the coolers and the other power plant you can just leave where they are. For the QT drive, I've gone for the Atlas. It's not as quick as some of the military grade ones, but it does have a very quick calibration time. So when you're looking to exit away from bounties, that can be really useful. It also doesn't consume fuel as much as I think it's the VK00 is the A grade military option for this size. But that will not let you get between Hurston and Crusader, for instance. So if you want to take on some of the ERT missions, which put bounties in Hurston and Crusader, then that super fast military drive isn't actually going to do you any good. So we'll take a quick look at fighting the Hammerhead now. So I guess one thing I should have mentioned there was just make sure you overclock all your weapons and your shields to make sure you're putting out maximum damage. You've got the most survivability. So the advantage to this weapon setup is you can reasonably sort of engage from about 4,000 meters out. Just make sure you keep strafing to avoid taking too many hits. But like I say, that triple shield setup with the FR66s will mean this is quite forgiving. And what you want to do here is sort of focus on one side of the Hammerhead. So you see in the top right hand corner, you can see which shield you're hitting. Personally, I prefer to try and hit his broadside. There are some people undoubtedly who will point out that it's easier to stay out of the way of their guns if you approach it from the front or the back. But personally, I find it easier to shoot for the bigger target. So aim for the side. Once those shields go down, you'll start to see yourself doing damage to the hull. So yeah, that's the key. You only need to get one shield down. Don't try and necessarily sort of like just spin around the Hammerhead. And there we go, he's popped. The Hammerheads come with 2 Hammerhead escorts. Stick around if you like a really good fight, but run away if you're just chaining these missions for the credits. So the Sabre was our sort of medium difficulty mode, but the Anvil Arrow is sort of probably for when you're feeling a bit more advanced. It's a much lighter ship, but you can fit it out with 3 size 3 hardpoints, so it also benefits from that balance where the weapons are sort of evenly distributed. And it is very, very agile. Sort of other options in this space are the Gladius and probably the Talon once we see it. It's in game if you've bought it for cash, but 3.13 we're going to be able to buy those and test those out in game. So in terms of loadout, I've opted for 1 attrition 3 because with the arrow you're going to be able to get in a lot closer and sort of stick to that Hammerhead, maybe better than you can in the Sabre. But then on the wings I've gone for 2 DR model XJ3s again for the distortion damage and for the ability to deal some of that damage from a bit more range if you sort of lose track of your target a bit more. One sort of word of caution, I would make sure that the attrition 3 is mounted on the top of the arrow where the turret goes, and put the distortion XJ3s on the wings. Same with the Sabre as well, put the laser repeaters in close to the nose and then put the distortion repeaters on the wings. You can quite easily lose a wing during combat, at which point you'll lose one of those weapons. So what you don't want is you don't want your weapons which actually do damage to hulls to be the thing blown off. Sort of it's, if we lose one of these distortion repeaters, we can still kill the Hammerhead. If we lose the attrition, we can't kill anything, because those distortions only do damage to shields and then interfere with ship systems, so they're not going to do any actual hull damage. In terms of shields, we've only got the space for the 1, and that's what makes this sort of a bit more of a risky proposition. So 1 FR66 in that case, and I've upgraded the power plant to a quadracell. That's a bit more power than you need, but it benefits from one of the lower signatures in that military list, so it just helps reduce down the range at which you can be targeted, show up on radar, makes doing things like juking missiles a bit easier. For the quantum drive, gone for the Atlas again for that ability to transition between Hurston and Crusader. And with the distances that you're jumping around, sort of if you're doing bounties in Hurston, for example, you won't feel the speed difference between that and some of the high-grade military ones. So with the arrow, you do just want to make sure that you close the gap pretty quickly. That attrition is only really going to be highly effective at a few 100 meters out. So just keep jinking so that you don't take any hits on the way in. And you can open up with the DR repeaters from sort of a bit further out. But then what you want to do is try and get in nice and close to that hammerhead and sort of hug it. The arrow benefits from being very hard to target. So if you stick in nice and close, you can quickly whittle away at that shield on the one side. So similar to the saber in terms of technique, but it does become a lot easier to stick with the one side of the hammerhead. So you see, I did take a hit there. You can afford to take, one or two, but not much beyond that, to be honest. So you're just looking for a nice clean kill and then to get yourself out. This is probably the more advanced mode, but also worth bearing in mind this arrow costs just under 1 million credits, whereas the other ships we're going to look at, so the Sabre cost 2.5, and the Eclipse cost 3.5 million. So if you're looking for a ship if you've got the ERTs unlocked, you're looking for a decent bounty hunter, I would say don't underestimate the arrow. If you can get good with this, then it's a very cheap option to get into the high level bounty hunting. So finally we've got easy mode, which is the Aegis Eclipse stealth bomber. So if you are really struggling with the hammerheads, this is an option you can use to take them out. Beside that, it is a great ship. I absolutely love the way it looks, particularly the cockpit. It's probably one of my favourite cockpits in Star Citizen at the moment. And there's definitely a space for it in your fleet in terms of it's a great ship for going up against things like the Idris. So hopefully if we get some more events in the near future, like Xeno Threat, then having a couple of people with bombers being escorted by people in fighters is a great way to tackle some of those larger capital ships. The ship's got a couple of size 2 hardpoints, but we're not really too worried about that. It's a ship that's not designed for going toe-to-toe. It's all about being sneaky and using size 9 torpedoes to blow up your targets without them even knowing you're there. So we'll take a quick look at the loadout. So I've left the Scorpion size 2 ballistic Gatlings, which come stock. I've also never fired them, so you could consider removing them just to reduce your signature that little bit further. The Argo 9 torpedoes that are stock are also perfectly fit for purpose. They're a bit overkill for everything that we're hunting, so I might take a look at changing those once I battle the Idris with this, but for this they're perfectly fine. But then for shields, power plant, quantum drive coolers, it's all about going grade A stealth. What we want to do with this ship is just reduce our signature as much as possible, so we can get in close without being detected and let off our torpedo strike. So the shields, 2 Mirages, the power plants are Slipstream, coolers I've upgraded to Vapor Blocks, and the quantum drive is a Spectre, which will also just comfortably do that trip between Hurston and Crusader. So basically the idea here is that we're just not even going to get seen or registered by the bounty target. So the locking of the missile does take quite a long time, but thankfully you can just be patient and wait for that to kick in. And then the next thing to do is to just make sure that there's nothing in between you and the bounty. So here we've got a massive asteroid. Because of the reduction in our signature, I've been as close as 4 kilometers away from some of these targets, and they haven't registered the Eclipse. So basically, don't risk a missile because, as we'll see a bit later, they are quite expensive. Sometimes just using third person can help you see objects which might not be quite so easy to see from the first person cockpit view. and just get a feeling for what obstacles might be in between you and the target, because if the torpedo hits those, it's just going to blow up on them instead, and that'll be just a waste. So conveniently, the Eclipse carries 3 of these torpedoes, 3 targets in the group bounty missions, so you really don't want to mess one of those up if you can help it. Once you're sure you've got a line to the hammerhead, then just press the middle mouse button again, and it's bombs away. This is the type of bounty hunting for someone who really likes to have a cup of tea while they play, because you know the time to the target. You've got time to have a nice couple of sips before you register the kill. And there he goes. And then it's time to move on to the next target. So these torpedoes do work, but are savage overkill for some of the smaller targets in the group. But like I say, there's 3 of them, so you know you might as well basically just go around and complete the group. Somebody showed me a render of a size 9 torpedo next to a Hurricane, and I'm pretty sure the torpedo is longer than the ship we're about to kill with it. So just make sure you do get in a bit closer to these smaller targets, or you do risk missing them. So yeah, it will work quite comfortably for the Hurricanes, Valkyries, and Wardens, which form the other potential targets within a group ERT. Of course, easy mode is not without its drawbacks. So when we come to restock, you'll notice you have to pay 10,713 credits for a full restock of your torpedoes. And some people could say, well, you know, why don't you just self-destruct the ship? I just personally prefer to just steer away from anything which might be like sort of game-breaking or changed in the future, because sure, right now we can just self-destruct our ships, set it claiming. I mean, I think the expedite on a Eclipse is about 7,500. Take 5 minutes to claim. Well, you know, if you just self-destruct straight after the last bounty, then probably you'll be just as quick as you would be if you went back to the station and restocked for more cash. But that's just not future-proof. And I suppose everything in these things isn't exactly future-proof, but I feel some of those things are holes that are going to get plugged at some point, so I don't want these guides to be out of date the moment they're published, just because CIG updates something. You know, it doesn't feel right that it's cheaper to just destroy your ship rather than restock it. So with all that said, thanks very much for watching. If you found this useful, please just let me know. If you've got a different approach to taking on these ERTs, then yeah, it'd be really good to have a discussion on it in the comments. So please get in touch. And if you like the content, then please hit that subscribe button to keep up with all the stuff we're going to do for 3.13. So I guess there's nothing left for me to do but to get back in my trusty Sabre and head back out to make Hurston a bit safer. And I hope to see you out there.